Wisconsin Eye's 2014 election coverage is brought to you by the Wisconsin Hospital Association. For over 90 years, a valued voice for Wisconsin hospitals, supporting high-quality, high-value care in communities like yours.
Wisconsin Eye coverage of the 2014 elections continues with an interview with Representative John Jagler. He's a Republican seeking re-election in the 37th Assembly District. He's from Watertown. John, welcome back to Wisconsin Eye.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Wisconsin Eye appreciates the support of the Wisconsin Hospital Association, which represents more than 139 hospitals and health systems, for making these candidate interviews possible. John, one thing on your campaign website, it may not have been updated, but you have said that you're proud of responsible budgeting. So I want to ask you about two things recently.
Sure.
Okay, earlier last week, the Fiscal Bureau says potential structural deficit,
right.
$1 billion. Sunday, Governor Walker says, if I'm reelected, I will cut income taxes even more. In light of a potential deficit, do you think income taxes, the next round of income tax, can be approved, sir?
Absolutely. I think we can get there. You know, the structural deficit was a number that it was out there, and coming from the outside looking in, it was like, boy, this is terrible. But it was interesting. Every time that we passed tax cuts along the way, the 3 tax cuts we did in the last session, we were told of these structural deficit, and every time the numbers got caught up with it, we had a surplus, and we were able to do it again. Obviously, it's something we need to take we need to be concerned about and cognizant of. But I think when Wisconsin starts rolling in, that structural deficit is a figure that will go away. I truly believe that. I mean, we ended this year with a surplus.
So you don't believe the Democrats when they say you GOPers over tax cut?
No, absolutely. The old line is, no one ever told me that Madison needs more money. I think we will be there, and if there does need to be a reduction, I'm sure it'll come in spending, and that's what the Governor Walker administration is going to be in charge of. I think we'll be all right.
Well, while we're on what the governor recommended if he's reelected, how do you feel about drug testing those who receive unemployment and food stamp benefits and cutting the length that they can collect those benefits back from 60 to 48 months?
Oh, I absolutely agree with drug testing for unemployment, and for a number of reasons. But I'll tell you why. One that I hadn't thought of. I've been very active in heroin, fighting the heroin problem that's just exploding throughout the state and the 37th Assembly District. And one of the deputies that I spoke with from the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department said this actually correlates to the heroin problem as well, with food stamp issues and unemployment issues, that some trading is being done on that end, and that if you have a situation where somebody is staying at home with a drug problem because they can't get a job because of their drug problem, you're actually exacerbating that problem. You're rewarding them for staying at home rather than trying to go out and get some of the treatment. For a multitude of reasons, but that was just one that I hadn't thought of recently.
Well, let's follow up. You have worked on the heroin issue. Is serious progress being made to address this incredible problem, John?
Yeah, I think the HOPE legislation that we had, that was one of the very first things I did when I was elected. I gathered together a forum, members of the faith community, members from the human services departments of my counties, law enforcement, and I had this forum because I wanted to learn more about it. We had at the fifth heroin overdose death in Watertown in 2 years.
That's probably
right after I got sworn in. And I was like, all right, my process when I want to learn about an issue is get as many different views as I can, and that's the way I present it to the public. Let's do this. Let's get as many different viewpoints in a room. And I figured, well, why not open it up to the public if this is such a big problem? And I thought I'd have more people on the panel than I would in the audience, but we had a packed room, standing room only. It's a model that's now been replicated by other representatives, and Dodge County Sheriff Kurt Klomberg has spread it out through all over Dodge County. And through that, I learned more. We got some bills, the HOPE legislation, done out of that. One of the things that we weren't able to do as much as I would like is some more funding for treatment. But obviously, the first step to getting that is to talk about it, and I don't think very many people were talking about it at the point that we started pushing the HOPE legislation. So when you start presenting it to outside legislators who maybe weren't aware of the problem, and education. I think there's going to be more funding opportunities for treatment in the next couple cycles here.
Okay, let's walk through some of the major issues in the next budget,
Yeah.
assuming you're reelected. What's going to be your priorities when school aids are up and being debated in the next budget, John?
Well, it was interesting. When the budget came out, Governor Walker's budget last time, there was no increase per pupil for education. And I said very publicly that this can't be, in talking with our superintendents, and pushed for it. And we were able to get more funding for education, $150 per pupil. And it was interesting because when I was saying that, I would go around to the superintendents and say, what if I can get 100 per pupil? Oh, John, that'd be great. That'd be great. We got it up higher, 150 each year of the biennium, and then it wasn't enough. And I understand that, but I was very, very pleased that we were able to add more money for education in there. And I assume that we will. One of the things that was said was, well, you cut education spending. I didn't. The only budget I ever voted for added more money to education.
A big part of this debate will be the future of vouchers and choice. The Speaker would like to remove the 1,000 cap on outstate voucher slots. Your position? Oh,
absolutely. I agree with that. I think some of the success stories combined with a revamped accountability bill. Well, I know there's arguments against it, but when you present it logically, I don't know how you can be to give families more opportunities at what's best for their kids. So I would be in favor of that, absolutely.
The governor over the summer called for Wisconsin to withdraw from Common Core standards. How do you feel about that?
Oh, that's a tricky one, obviously. Saying you want to withdraw, I was a co-sponsor of the bill that did that got us out of Common Core. But you know what I tell the people that this is their number one issue for a lot of people, including a lot of the people in my district, and I tell them, this is a fight that needs to happen on the local level, because any district can get out of Common Core right now. As far as what the state role, I think we can do better. I think we can have our Wisconsin standards that are better. The standards themselves, Common Core standards, aren't necessarily the problem. I think it's the implementation of them, the curriculum around them, how the genesis of it. And I asked that a lot of people that were opponents of it. Are you more concerned about the genesis of it or the standards themselves? And it was more of the federal outreach that they were most concerned about. I think a lot of the business groups obviously are in support of some type of standards. I just think we need to look at it in Wisconsin and do it ourselves.
Transportation funding, you've heard the projections, potential deficit, 600 million, 700 million. How should it be filled? We bonded 991 million in the current budget, but
it's one of those things where we had a consortium of meetings with the builders that were coming through the district, road builders, farmers, coming through and saying this is the problem. We all know the problem. I put out a legislative survey saying I know all of these are undesirable. Toll roads, vehicle registration increases. Which one is the least desirable? And I got written across none of them. they absolutely refused to answer.
So all of the options that you threw out were equally objectionable.
Exactly.
To the residents of your district.
The one that was probably the best was toll roads. That was the one that was probably.
But as you know, that'll take a change in federal
absolutely.
law. The Speaker has said we're years away from that.
And we are. And so I don't know that. I don't have the magic bullet.
Sounds like you've got people like you've got a lead on this issue.
Well, that's just it. We haven't figured out a way to do that yet, and it is a bit of a ticking time bomb that's going to be there for us.
Would you consider raising the gas tax?
No.
Okay.
The
$75 that you and I pay to register our cars.
I think there's got to be some type of formula there to get there, but I don't know what that is, Steve. And you talk to people much higher up on the legislative food chain, and they don't know either. But it is sitting there, and something we're going to have to take it'd probably be the number one issue, I believe, in the next couple of years, and not just beyond this next session, but beyond that. Because as you know, with the gas tax going down and driving more fuel-efficient cars, the numbers don't add up. And we could talk about it all day, but I don't know if we'd get there in the next couple minutes.
And your constituents who don't like any of the revenue-raising options want good roads, don't they, John?
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing. When I can imagine my caucus in my head, okay, sitting in probably stronger than 60 plus. Let's hope. I I know this percentage isn't going to go for that. I know this percentage isn't going to go for that. I can name them in my head which percentage aren't going to go for, gas, and how you get there,
I understand.
We're going to have to figure it out. It's going to be a discussion for a lot longer day than this.
Yeah. Healthcare funding. 1 in 5 Wisconsin residents gets healthcare through our Medicaid program. American Hospital Association says our reimbursement rates for Medicaid second lowest in the nation.
Right.
Should they be increased?
Well, we made a significant $2 billion increase in Medicaid, and we still weren't able to get to the reimbursement issue. And I think this is a really good example of why expanding Medicaid by taking the federal dollars would have made this problem even worse. We would never been able to even talk about it because we're already spending and allocating so much money on Medicaid that we couldn't even dream of doing it. In this way, at least if they're on the Affordable Care Act, the reimbursements are closer to the market rate than the Medicaid rate. I think it's something that needs to be looked at, but whether we can get there, I'm not sure.
Okay. The bill to legalize medical marijuana will be reintroduced, and now Washington and Colorado have legalized recreational use. Your positions?
Absolutely against the legalization of recreational marijuana. I think I am a little bit more sympathetic than others in my caucus on medical marijuana. Not that I would be a sponsor of it, not that I, waving the flag for it, but I think if there is a way to be to do this, I think with close doctors, I know personal situations of constituents of mine who've called me, very much Republican constituents who've called and said, "Look, this is the only thing that might be able to help me. Is there any movement on it?" Wow. So I think I'm more sympathetic. Like I said, I don't think I would be. I know I wouldn't be a co-author of it, but I certainly am more sympathetic than others in my caucus.
First offense, drunken driving, should it be a crime, John?
No, I don't think so.
Why?
I think, and when everyone comes at me and says, "Look at this, I read this story about 5-time drunk driver, 6-time drunk driver, 7-time drunk driver, 8-time drunk driver," it's one story after the other. It just proves that that's not the way to go. It counters their argument that, boy, if only at first-time drunk driving, that would be it. Well, these people are breaking the law repeatedly over and over again, and it's not stopping them. I don't know why you could logically say that the first offense would be some type of detriment.
Okay. Another thing the governor announced Sunday, he wants to freeze tuition not only in the UW schools but on the tech colleges. Do you support?
Absolutely. And that's the tuition freeze is one of the more undercovered, I think. It kind of got lost, and maybe that was our job that we didn't tell people enough about it. It certainly wasn't criticized, but when I been doing doors this last couple months, boy, and probably because it's topical, because kids are starting to go back,
yeah.
But I've had more families say, "Thank you so much for doing this." And if we do it those 2 years, if you can get someone in and out of college, if they're lucky enough to do it in 4 years and have that tuition frozen, especially after the history of it skyrocketing, boy, that's real hard money back in the families' pocketbooks.
The other side of that, though, is now the regents say, okay, if you're going to freeze tuition, we need $84 million. That's something you can support?
$84 million? I don't know. I don't know. The regents have told us a lot of things in the last couple of years.
Are they doing better in terms of credibility in the Capitol?
Absolutely. It has improved. Okay. It has improved, yeah.
Okay. Finally, do you want to highlight any differences between you and your opponent on November 4th?
I got to tell you, Steve, I haven't even talked about my opponent on the doors. In fact, I kind of made a bit of a personal goal when meeting groups is to never even mention her name, because I'm proud of my record and I'm proud of where I want to issues I want to attack. And if the voters aren't there, well, then I can go home and know that just like last time, I ran a positive campaign.
Very good. Thank you. State Representative John Jagler of Watertown is a Republican seeking re-election in the 37th Assembly District. John, thanks for talking to Wisconsin Eye.
You bet.
Thank you.